to have that on our doorstep. And it's nice to keep it a secret, but unfortunately the secret's out, and there's a lot of people who go up there now, particularly on a Sunday, you can hardly move up there, but yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, a lot of what John said is half truth, maybe. Maybe not quite as extreme as that, although some people do say that if ABD being invented when I was a kid, I would have had it. But unfortunately, no, just maybe a little bit hyperactive. And the reason I've got two businesses is one my wife runs and one I run. She tried to make a barista out of me and it lasted me about 3 weeks. And I had to go and find something else to do. But Berry's been great to us, been good to me, and it's probably, if you had to pick somewhere to live, and let's not tell anyone about this, but if you had to pick somewhere to live in the world, and I've done quite a bit of travelling through the mountaineering side of things, I think Berry would be it. Berry would be it, yeah, so it's a great place to live, isn't it? Get on to a little bit about what we've just done, and both Bill and Laurel were in Nepal with us. We left in March, through mid-March, and we decided that some time ago last year that a walk to Everest Base Camp as a fundraiser for polio might be a good thing. And it came about by some years ago, and I'll put a video on in a moment about what happened in 2014. Beginning of last year, I was out paragliding out at Gunnedah. Now, everyone know what paragliding is? It's a little flying machine that looks like that you wrap it up, it's about the size of a handkerchief and goes in your backpack and you climb a mountain and you can jump off. Or you go to Stanmore Park, if you don't want to climb up a mountain, you just jump off to Stanmore Park up there. Or you might see gliders here at Canberra. I've been flying a fair bit at Canberra over the last few weeks. And, again, one of the beauties of living in this area, we've got all those facilities for us. But I was out flying at Gunnedah, and it's called flatland flying. And basically what we do is you get towed up in the air behind a car. You've got a long bit of string that's played out. You stand on this long straight bit of dirt road, and the car drives off, and you gradually get up and get dragged up behind the car until you're about 1,000 feet above the car. So the car is very, very small, and when you hit a thermal, which is basically rising air caused by the ground heating up, big bubbles of air rolling across the ground will hit a building or hit a group of trees or hit a hill, and they'll release from the ground, and up they go, and they blow across with the wind. So these big bubbles of hot air. And you try and find these bubbles. You can't see them, you've got to feel them. And you find these big bubbles, and when you get in one, you release the rope from the car, and up you go. And you can get up to 3,000 metres, 2,500 metres. And once you get to cloud base with the glider, the cloud is actually telling you, well, that's as high as this bubble of air is going to go. And they're quite rough. You really ride them like a bucking bull. And you're going around and around in circles trying to stay in this bubble of air, hit the cloud base, and then you look for where another cloud is building up, or where there's an eagle circulating down below you, and you shoot across to that one, you hop in that bubble there, and up you go again. And you can travel for the Australian record, which is also the world record, is just under 500 kilometres of travel on a paraglider. Amazing stuff. Anyway, this is what we were doing. We're on this particular, it wasn't a course so much, it was sort of a group of like-minded people, and it was run by a guy by the name of Jockey Sanderson, who's an English paragliding instructor. He does a lot of test flights on paragliders for a company called Ozone. And that particular glider was made by Ozone. And we're sitting around at night time after flying during the day, and he's gone around with a whole group of pilots there, there would have been a dozen of us there, and said, right, we want to talk about who's flown the highest. And he knew well what I'd done previously, and it was a bit of a setup really. And he's asked the guy next to me, oh, how high have you been? I've flown 2,000 metres, I've flown 1,000 metres, I've flown 4,000 metres. So, and he's coming around to me and he said, Ken, how far have you flown? I said, 7,200 metres. And it blew the people away. And of course it created a whole lot of interest about what is it like to fly at that altitude. And I'll go into a little bit more on that shortly. And after all the interest, and it's great for me because I'm very passionate about the polio campaign, particularly Rotary's polio campaign to rid polio from the planet, which we hope to be doing in the next couple of years. gave me an opportunity to talk to people about that. But it also, he said to me, Jockey, he said to me, well, you've done a 7,200 metre flight, what's next? You're going to try and top that? You're going to do it off Everest? I said, no, I'm not going to do it off Everest. And he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I'll dangle the carrot. If you want to do it, I'll donate a glider to you to do it. So I started to think about it, and oh, well, you're going to give me a glider, I'll do it. You're going to give me a paraglider, yeah, I'll do it. So then the idea sort of was in my head, okay, is it feasible, can it be done? Now it has been done once before by a Sherpa back in 2011, and he managed to get to the summit of Everest by going with his cousins and his brothers and all his Sherpa mates, and got up there for free, just tagging along with different groups, pretending he was actually a Sherpa guide or a porter. He got to the summit and he flew a glider off. He flew the glider about 20 miles, he landed, he jumped into a river, an inner tube, and he took the inner tube all the way down and landed up at the Indian Ocean, right through India, and he got awarded the National Geographic Adventure of the Year award for doing that. I've actually been in touch with him, and he's giving me a hand to do what we hope to be doing next year. What happened this year was when people heard about this, they said, oh, I'd love to go to Everest Base Camp, I'd love to do something like that, and I got the idea, well, why not? Let's throw it out there, let's take a few people with me. Nepal can be a lonely place by yourself. You're with a whole lot of foreigners, and you're with mountaineers, but you're not with real people. And I don't call mountaineers real people, they're a bunch of big people. So, they all want to flaunt death and destruction, and you sit around at base camp and Camp 1 and Camp 2, which are higher than base camp, and talk about what happened on this mountain and why this guy never returned, and you think, what a stupid sport. And it is, it's ridiculous. Why put yourself in danger? You can go play tennis and you can break a leg, but you're going to get home at night. Climbing mountains is one of those things which, and Lorelle will tell you what she went through, and I'll touch on that a little bit just briefly. We haven't got all day, I can probably talk all day on all this because I love it, but it's, there's always a story that comes back from a mountaineering expedition. Fortunately for me, they've been good stories. Oh, we've had dramas, but they've all been good stories. So I accepted the invitation to take the glider, decided that there was so many people that said, can you take us to Everest Base Camp? I said, well, let's put it out there, let's see what we can do, and we can turn this into a fundraiser for polio. So how it worked is each person that put their hand up to come is going to cost them $5,000. They could go out and fundraise the $5,000. So if they wanted to, the whole trip could be for free. They could fundraise the whole lot. So the first $2,000 they raised was their donation to polio. So we had 21 people come. We've got $2,000 from each person. That's a heck of a lot of money raised for polio. The next $3,000 were the costs, the airfares, the accommodation, all the other bits and pieces. Didn't include horse rescue, it didn't include helicopter rescue, all of which we had to pay for on top of that. But again, I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But so we've gone and we've now got 21 people, all kicked the tin for $2,000. As Rotarians, and because this was a Rotary event, we get the benefit of, we're in partnership with the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And we have an arrangement. The first $50 million raised by Rotary across the world gets matched at $2 for every $1 we raise. Now, that makes every dollar we raise a very easy dollar to make $3. So what we're hoping, and I don't know how we work it, and this Bill might know more about this than me, but how it works out, how much Rotary have raised, whether we've raised that $50 million this year or not. But if we haven't, that $42,000 to $43,000 that we've raised by going to Everest Base Camp gets tripled. So we're now up to $130,000 for that trip, which is quite amazing, considering that a polio vaccine, and I was reading this morning, they're buying vaccines for polio eradication now down to 24 cents US. So that's a heck of a lot of vaccines. While I'm on that, and you can see why I'm so passionate about polio from these statistics, and be involved with something that is so huge across the world, making such a difference across the world. In 1987, there were more than 1,000 cases of polio a day across the world. 1,000 a day. So far this year, Bill, do you know what we've had so far this year? Was it 9? 9 cases across the world this year. You see the difference there? Quite amazing. For every 200 cases of polio, remember polio is caught by kids generally under 5 years of age. For every 200 cases of polio that are suffered that are caught by kids, you'll have 1 child paralysed. Okay? For every 100 kids paralysed, 10 won't survive. So you imagine this. They're saying now that since Rotary have been involved with polio eradication, 16 million children are alive today that would not be alive. You see these numbers are just huge. And you can see why even us in Berry and us going and raising $130,000 by walking to Everest Base Camp has made a huge difference to what's going on around the world. You know, the difference that we can make is so easy when we've got the Gates Foundation on board. It's so easy when I can involve my passionate pastime and convert it to doing something great. What I'm doing is the greatest thing that I have ever done in my life is superseded immensely by what Rotary and our partners out there have done for the kids of the world. And we're nearly there. We're nearly finished. We've got to keep going. We're nearly there. You know, nine cases this year from 350,000 cases a year is just mind-boggling. But to do it, I asked Rotary at one night, so we're going to take a new Rotary project on. Let's say, righto, this coffee club here, our coffee and friends group here, we're going to take on a program. We're going to go and we're going to eradicate, we're going to immunise every child in Berry next weekend. How are we going to go about that, to do that? Is it a big job? It is. It's quite a big job. We've got to contact every family. We've got to find out where all the kids are living in Berry under 5 years of age. We're going to immunise each of those. We can't just advertise and expect to cover them all. You know, we've got to go, every last child, there's a slide up here, sure, it says every last child. It's like every last child, no matter where they are in the world, has to be immunised. Well, every last child in Berry has to be immunised. Now, fortunately, the government do it for us in Australia. We still immunise our children against polio. But have that not been the case, we've got to do that in Berry next weekend. How are we going to do that? That's difficult. Right, well, let's expand it. Let's say, right, now everyone in the Shoalhaven. We're going to do everyone in the Shoalhaven next weekend. How many people are we going to need to do that? And it's quite amazing. But we have done that around the world. Every child, we have done that around the world, all but. Because if we immunise every child, polio cannot exist. It's done and dusted. It can only survive on children that have not been immunised. So if we immunise every child, then we've met the challenge. We've done that. The last immunisation day in India, let me give you some statistics here. It is the National Immunisation Day. They had 640,000 vaccine centres. Okay, so that's the church halls, that's the street, the corners of the streets, the markets. They had 2.3 million volunteers. Remember, they're trying to immunise every child in India. So this is the scale of it. Now, this is not just a one-off. These happen in most countries around the world. Obviously, India is much bigger. 200 million doses of vaccine. 191 million homes were visited in this one round, which would have been over 3 or 4 days. And 172 million children were vaccinated. Mind-boggling, isn't it? We just want to do Berry next weekend. It makes it difficult. So yeah, the trip that we had recently really came about by what happened 4 years ago. And to put you in the picture as far as what this paragliding stunt was all about and what high altitude climbing is all about, you either love it or hate it. And if someone says to me, I have a standard answer, if someone says, oh, why do you climb mountains? And my standard answer is, and it's very much like what George Mallory said back in 1925 when he attempted Everest, and he said, you know what his answer was there? Why do you climb Everest? Because it's there. Well, my answer is, if you ask me that question, you will never understand anyway, so why answer it? But the short and sweet of it is, I suppose for me personally, it is the ability to do something that's out of the ordinary. The places of the world that mountaineering takes you, and generally I always seem to be in third world countries, and I suppose the challenge of accomplishing something that is very difficult to accomplish. Who here's been to high altitude? Has anyone been above 3,000 metres?
I've been at 12,000.
Not in a helicopter or a plane.
Cusco.
Cusco? What's Cusco doing?
4,100.
4,100? Cusco as well? Anyone been higher than 4,100?
No, I've been 12,000 feet. I don't know what.
4,000.
4,000.
Yeah, 4,000.
Yeah. And I was on my hands and knees that last week, climbing up the top of the mountain.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't go round to the peak.
Okay, did you feel the effects of altitude at that?
Only breathlessness.
Breathlessness?
Yeah.
How long were you up there for, Carol?
Oh, half an hour or so,
Okay.
and then we came down again. Yeah.
Has anyone been higher than... Anyone been at top of Kosciuszko? Yeah. Did you notice any difference at Kosciuszko?
No, I'm much younger than.
You're much younger then.
I've been higher than that
Yeah.
in the Rockies.
Right.
But again, first time I was there, it was okay.
Yeah.
Later, it was not older.
Yeah. I noticed that someone who hasn't put a hand up, Laurel. What height have you been to, Laurel?
8, 3, 6, 5, maybe even higher when the high part where the base camp is.
Yeah. So base camp's 5,350 odd metres. 5,355 metres. Yeah. And what did you find at 5,300 metres? How did you, apart from your physical injuries that you sustained when someone pushed you in the back and pushed you over, is that how it happened? Or you've got to make a good story out about that one. Well, Laurel came to Everest Base Camp a few weeks back and did marvellously well. I'm not saying that because she's in the room, but she did. And she's 66 years young and she absolutely did so well. She's got a good story about how she got out. But how did you find, you said you didn't have any headaches on the way up?
No, no.
Right, but what did you find up there as far as breathing is concerned?
Breathlessness.
Yep.
The panicking in the sleeping bag at night. Sometimes when you're so cocooned in that then you suddenly
Takes a bit of claustrophobic.
I was a bit claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So then you have to learn how to just deep breathing and slowly and
Yeah,
heart rate going. So
heart rate at night time.
pumping all time, all
Yep.
through the night.
Yep. And you really feel that because what's happening is down at sea level, we're used to a certain density of air, and as we know, the air that we need to breathe is oxygen and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide keeps us breathing, oxygen keeps the body functioning and allowing us to do that. When you get up to these high altitudes, that density of air, you've still got the same amount on ratios of all the components of the air, but you don't have the same volume in a cubic metre. So basically you're going down here with one atmosphere of pressure, and you go up there and it reduces. So as you're breathing in, there's not the same amount of oxygen and other air components that you're breathing in, so you've got to breathe more. Okay? And the body's got to adjust to this, and the way the body adjusts to it, it starts making more red blood cells, because the red blood cells carry your oxygen around your body. So we've got to walk up very, very slowly to allow the body to acclimatise and build those red blood cells up, plus a whole lot of other stuff that I don't understand. But and if we go up too far, you run out of oxygen. You're still breathing, but the oxygen's not in that breath. So you've got to acclimatise very slowly. And the textbook says, let's climb 300 metres a day. Now that's all very well and good, but 300 metres a day, there may be nowhere to stay. So what we try and achieve is 300 metres a day. On one particular day, we went up 600 metres, which is pretty scary. But on those bigger days, what we tended to do was have a rest day first to allow the body to catch up, so you're not deprived when you're ready for that big altitude going. Now we went to 5,300 metres. The summit of Everest. Anyone know the summit of Everest? Not the world. I know you know. I heard you say it. Sorry?
7,900.
Yeah, no, it's higher. It's a kilometre higher than that. Yeah, 8,800 is the summit of Everest. And we've gone to 5,300 metres, so it's another 3 kilometres higher, 3,000 metres higher. And of course, the higher you get, the acclimatisation process takes longer and longer and longer. It took us 9 days to get to Everest Base Camp or thereabouts. To get to the summit of Everest is about 4 weeks. Okay, so it's a lot longer. So the intention for me this year was to climb to the summit and fly a paraglider off as close to the summit as I possibly could get, or more so, close to the summit as you can possibly find enough space to lay a paraglider out and jump off the mountain. Now, how ridiculous is that? You would want to do that. The simple secret is though, it's far safer coming down on a paraglider than what it is walking. Not only that, I reckon that in about an hour and a half after leaving the summit, I'll be in base camp having a nice hot cup of tea, while the other climbers have still got 3 or 4 days to get down. And that's what's happened, I'm sure you. Let me put this video on. We'll probably just got to work out how to get away from this. How do I get out of the slideshow? Yeah, that's actually just cool. That's quite an interesting concept there. Here's Mount Kosciuszko here. Okay. There's Everest here, and the 6th highest mountain is Chorley. So my intention in 2014 was to summit Chorley and fly the glider off Chorley. Now, what happened is that didn't happen. We didn't summit. The main reason we didn't summit is because of the weather. To climb a mountain these days is very hard to get sponsorship and very hard to make some money out of that. And of course, this was done for polio, to make money for polio and awareness for polio. What was going to make the awareness and make the dollars was a paragliding flight at those altitudes, because it's very, very rare that someone can do that. And that was the intention. Not only that, the Chinese military were dotted along the border. I saw you above the high mountains and they shoot you down, and I wasn't too keen on that happening at all. So I just need to get out of this. Now, there we go. I'm still excited about how to use a computer. No, I don't want to save changes. anyone asks, yeah, it did hurt landing. Well, you're not meant to land like that, unfortunately. The options was to land out on the snow slopes where the Chinese military could see me, or to land on the rocks where I had a risk of injury. The risk of injury from the rocks was far less than the risk of injury from the Chinese, so I just chose that. Also, it's 2019 was supposed to be the flight. Obviously, it didn't happen this year. It's not going to happen until the climbing season of next year. There's a couple of provisos on that, and you may laugh at this, and I'd sit back and laugh now, but back on the 22nd of October last year, I was training for that flight at a place called Windang Island. You know where Windang Island is out of Lake Illawarra? It's about a 10 metre high cliff, and I had an accident and I broke my wrist. So, seems a little bit silly, 10 metres high, going up to 8,800 metres high. But anyway, I suppose you push the limits when you think you're safe and have an accident. So we're gearing up for next year. I have 8 people now that want to walk to Everest Base Camp next year with me, and similar to what we did this year. One of those is Gareth Ward, so that'll be interesting. The plan is to do exactly what we did this year, but next year, and I'll stay on and climb the mountain, but probably take a smaller team, because although the team we had coming to Everest this year was still only 2021 trekkers, and a great bunch of people. I'm sure Laurel and Bill will confirm this, that a greater bunch of people you would never met. Now I wonder why when you grab people from all different walks of life and put them all together in a situation which can be deemed threatening, and yes, the walk to base camp is not just a walk in the park, it is hard work, and put this group of people together, and to see the support they give each other was absolutely amazing. It was a real lesson in humanity for me, and we had all sorts of issues. Went from lost socks to right through to quite significant. Well, we had 2 cases, possibly 3 cases of what's called pulmonary edema, which is an issue with water in the lungs and providing an inability to breathe. And we had people evacuated by helicopter. We had people taken. Well, Laurel had an accident right at base camp itself. She made it. Well done. And at base camp she had an incident. She fell over, cut her eye. Had to get a horse out from there. Laurel sit on horseback for 2 hours to get back to the first town. Would have been odd to sit on a horse too, but they didn't offer me a horse. And then the next day we hired 3 horses, and 3 of the girls went back down to another town called Lobichet. The horses dropped them off there, and then we had a situation where we couldn't get helicopters up to take them to hospital. We had to wait up overnight with no equipment, no gear, no tent, no sleeping gear, no clothing. So it all became a bit of an epic trip. Makes for a great story, but we all achieved, except for one guy who couldn't make it. And the main reason he couldn't make it was he uses a sleep apnea machine at night time and it wouldn't work at altitude. And we didn't even think of that. Isn't that amazing? So the other situation we had was you cannot fly a paraglider in the Khumbu Valley, which is basically the valley leading up to Everest. It is illegal, and so I have to get a permit to do that. And in typical Nepalese style, we had a permit all sorted, all organ, verbal approval, and I was going to a town called Pokhara to meet with the Minister for Tourism. And 2 weeks prior to our trip, we got notified that he was killed in a helicopter accident in the mountains. And so we have to start that again. So the process of that is underway for next year. Hopefully it'll happen quicker than what it did for this particular. So that was another anomaly that we had to put up with. As I said, the flying off Everest has been done before. The intention of this expedition, it's probably going to be, and I don't want any comment from Mr. Seals, this will be the last trip, Bill. No, we're not interested in your comments. Yeah, every time you come back, mountaineering is a hard game. It's daily. I'm not saying putting your life on the line daily because that'd be stupid, but it is being conscious of risk the whole time. All the time while you're in the mountains, you're conscious of risk. And on this particular trip with Choi Yu, I was sitting on the Everest Base Camp to acclimatise because I get altitude sickness at 5,000 metres, and I've got to manage that situation. So the way I managed it before I went into Tibet to climb that mountain was to go into base camp, and I got pretty sick at Loboshay, where I took the horse to. And I'm sitting on the moraine, which is the rocks beside the glacier, watching the bodies of Sherpas, 16 Sherpas being carted out underneath helicopters. And I'm feeling really sick with altitude sickness. And I'm asking myself, here's this bloke from Berry that has a coffee shop and a landscaping business, wants to fly a paraglider off one of the world's highest mountains, and here's all these experienced climbers that are professional climbers and they're all dead. What makes me think that I can do that? And I called it off. I said, this is ridiculous, this is stupidity. And then, when you start thinking about what it was all about, it was about polio. It was about children that are suffering paralysis, and it was about children dying, and this was the whole reason for being there. I started to feel really bad about me not having the guts to carry on, not even going to the mountain, calling it off well and truly before that. So I was inspired. I inspired myself that I came to that decision, but I was also very frustrated because of the fact that I even thought about quitting when it wasn't about me. This was about what we're trying to do for the kids. This was about the Rotary movement to eradicate polio from around the world, which obviously is bigger than one person, bigger than me being scared, put it that way. But beyond that, I thought there is going to be another reason why you're not going to be able to paraglide from an 8,000 metre mountain, and that'll be weather related, it'll be avalanche related, it'll be something, it'll be taken out of my hands anyway. So I was comfortable with the fact that there would be another reason. And the more time went on, more reasons came to quit. But for some reason, it was like Moses parting the Red Sea. All of a sudden, all the problems got pushed aside. Till the morning that I was due to take to fly the glider off, and I wake up in the morning, and we'd had strong winds the day before, to the point where my climbing partner had decided to pull out, and he went back to base camp, and as a result, he took those marvellous photos of him flying. I had a GoPro on the helmet, but he took all the ground shots for me, and that was not even planned for, anticipated, because he was so worn out. Wake up that morning, pristine skies. You never get a day at 7,200 metres where there's no wind. And all of a sudden, I wake up, 2 knots of breeze, 1 knot of breeze, 6 knots of breeze, nothing above that. Coming straight up the mountain, ideal flying conditions. There was no excuse. I had to do it. Had a glider that was only 21 square metres, had no idea, never been flown at those altitudes before, no idea whether it was going to fly or not, and I was about to launch myself off a 1,800 metre high cliff. So, yeah, is it stupid? Yeah, it's stupid, but I did it. I landed, I had a sprained ankle when we finished, and I had a bruised knee, bruised left knee, and a sprained right ankle when I finished. And I just lay back there, looked back up where I've come from, and I landed, even to the point where I had ice axes in the backpack, a length of rope, sleeping bag, and a way of melting the ice, just in case this glider landed me in a crevasse field somewhere and I had to do a self-rescue to get out. When I landed, I've come in at around about, so I'm told by experts, around about 50 kilometres an hour, and I've hit the ground as you saw, bang, spun around on my back, and landed on a framework of ice axes wrapped up in a down sleeping bag that was that thick. So there's no injury at all. Everything went like clockwork. Everything went like someone up there said, you're going to do this and I'm going to help you. And that's what happened. And it does give you the confidence to now tackle something a lot bigger, which is going to happen next year, hopefully, if all the ducks line up. And I'll just finish off, you know the story about the seashell, the starfish on the beach? Most people have heard this, and I think it's really apt to this story. There's a boy picking up starfish and throwing them into the water. And a guy comes along and says to him, what are you doing? He says, I'm saving the starfish. And there are literally millions of starfish on the beach. And if you go around the next corner, there's more millions of starfish on the beach around the corner. And the guy said to him, mate, you're not going to make a difference. You've got one starfish, you're throwing it in the water, you're not going to literally make a difference. So he picked out another starfish and he threw it into the water. And he said, just made a difference to that one. And that's what this is all about. We're not going to solve, buried Rotary is not going to solve the problems of the world, but we can do a little bit. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to have other questions. And also, if anyone wants to volunteer to walk to Everest Base Camp next year, let me know after.
Again, what sort of health assessment, fitness assessment do you require for people joining that trip to base camp?
What I say to people is you don't need to be an Olympic athlete. You need to be fit. You need to be able to walk 10 kilometres, and you need to be able to. The walking is about 6 hours a day, so you need to be able to walk 6 hours a day, day after day after day after day. Okay, we had the youngest person we had on our trip was 16, a young girl, local girl, and the oldest person we had on the trip was 74. And he did marvellously well, he did really well. And his wife was. Oh, Sandra.
Seem to be up there.
Yeah, close to 70 as well. Yeah, and she was one of the strongest on the team. Yeah. So it's really a matter of, and it's opening it up to you don't have to be in Rotary, you don't have to live in Berwick, it can be anywhere. We took one guy from Perth this time, another guy who lived in Slovenia wanted to come. You had to pull out due to work commitments, but so yeah, it's, and the only real commitment for them is you've got to raise $2,000 for polio first, and then either raise the full amount of money or pay for the rest yourself, or pay. Some people pay the whole $5,000 themselves. We've got people still out there fundraising now. We've got other Rotary clubs who've supported it as well. We've got donations from various clubs, various people. But fundraising is probably the more difficult part of the whole thing. Although Everest Base Camp is challenging.
People talk about how busy it is, how aware they are of other groups, how aware of how many people there were at base camp.
Yeah.
Is that something you agree with?
You mean on the
That
mountain
it is
itself?
that busy, yeah.
Everest has never really been on my bucket list, so to speak. There's much more beautiful mountains around, more challenging mountains around, and no one climbs them. I mean, when I say no one, only the climbing fraternity climbs them. And they're all so much cheaper. To climb Everest Base Camp, you've got to write a check out to the Nepalese government for $12,000. That's whether you succeed or not. That's what it costs. And then you've got to have another $40,000 to pay for a climbing agency to take you there. It's expensive to do it. Whereas the other amount, like Choi U, was $8,000, and that was the whole thing. I think it was a $2,000 summit fee, and the rest was to pay for your climbing support. And you have to use climbing support. You can't climb these mountains without a team. It's just not. Well, it is possible, but for someone like me, it's not possible to do that. And Everest, there are so many people on Everest these days. Literally, there could be 30 teams of 10 people all want to summit on the same day. And as a result, people get killed. And that therein lies the problem. Although the Hillary Step, which is one of the last parts of the difficult parts of the climb, you remember back in 1996, 8 climbers lost their life because, and that was all about that movie Everest that was done 3 years ago. I mean, the movie Everest, that was about that trip, and 8 people lost their lives because they got stuck on the Hillary Step because there was only one rope there to get up, and a storm hit them. And that seems to be what kills most people. The amount of people on the mountain itself creates a problem. As a result, why add to the danger and climb a mountain like that when there's other options? The only problem is, everybody knows Mount Everest, and for sponsorship dollars, it's got to be Mount Everest. Choi U. I mean, who today has heard of Choi U? Prior to now? Nobody. Yet it's the 6th highest mountain in the world, and it's only 30 kilometres from Everest. It's just up the range a little bit further. So that's why Everest. Yeah.
When you're mounting these immunisation programs, how do you overcome the resistance of the new age young mums who knock it out by a kid tree or like that?
Sorry, how do you
overcome the attitude, the new age young mums?
Yes, yeah. Look, I find it really difficult to accept that someone would not protect their child from diseases like polio. When we know, and I suppose we're educated because we're in the activity of immunising children, we know what it's about. But they have the luxury, because they live in Australia, of having a choice. Okay? We've got German visas now coming back into Australia, coming from overseas. Because we have the choice and we can have the argument that we'll get away with it. They don't believe they're going to get away with it. They believe it's not necessary, but they will get away with it because most other children have it. Most other children have the immunisations. I don't know. I can't personally. I can't see any argument why you would not immunise your child. I'm not a medical person. There may be medical reasons why these people choose not to immunise their children, but I just think it's neglectful.
Yes, but you haven't really answered the question. How do you overcome that resistance when you're mounting a program like you were saying, we're going to immunise every kid in Berry next weekend? Are you really?
You mean how do you overcome people that say I don't want my child immunised? Yeah. Well, do you actually make it an offence by not immunising your child? Then you take away people's free choice. Is there an answer to the question? I don't know. There is an answer to the question. If we're in a communist country, perhaps there is an answer, but because of the nature of how we operate in Australia, I don't believe there is an answer. You can't force people. Technically, if you were to stick a needle in someone's child, it constitutes an assault. Just because it's got an immunisation component to it, is it still not an assault? I don't know. Is there an answer to that? Personally, I think it should be compulsory. But I'm also reluctantly say that because I'm also an advocate for freedom of speech and also freedom to do what we believe is right for our families. And if they genuinely believe it's right for their family not to immunise, who am I to criticise? Provided my child doesn't, or my granddaughter or grandson doesn't catch polio because their mother refused to immunise their child. And I'm going to suffer for that. I go away as well. And there are now preschools opening up for children that are unimmunised because the government is saying you cannot send your child to preschool unless you have this, and produce the evidence that you have. If you haven't, you're not welcome at the preschool, the government preschool. So there are those now that are opening up preschools for children that are not immunised. Isn't that dangerous? You're now creating a target group for these diseases. I just think that's crazy.
You talked earlier about riding the thermals at Gunnedah, and you said the day that you jumped off Choy or you, that you had a breeze coming up the valley.
Yeah.
So when you jumped off, you were relying on that breeze. You sort of rode that as you were coming down.
Yes. Well, not so much rode it. The breeze assists you at launch when you're launching your glider. At 7,200 metres, it's very hard to run. Leroy, could you have run back from Everest Base Camp at 5,300 metres? Not a chance in the world. Okay, to launch a paraglider, you need to get let's just say, I'm not sure exactly, but you need to have about 10 knots or 12 knots of breeze through the glider. Now, if I've got calm conditions, I've got to create that by running. Now, because at Choyu and I'm at 7,200 metres was the launch altitude with about 2 knots of breeze, I couldn't even get the glider from the ground above. And typically what happens with a glider's in front of you, the cliff's over this side, you pull what's called the A risers, which is the front of the glider up, the wing gets underneath it, the glider comes up above your head, you turn around and off you go. When you've got no wind, you've got to create that by running. So you start with the glider behind you, you pick up the A risers behind you and you run. And that's how I had to launch off Choyu. I didn't know if I could run that fast at 7,200 metres, and I've got to run, let's say, at 10 knots, which is about, let's call it 15 kilometres an hour, at 7,200 metres where there's no oxygen. Those are the things were the unknown things. I now look at Choyu as a practice for what's going to happen next year. I'm a lot smarter. I'm a lot better pilot. I've come up now through the ranks, and I'm an advanced pilot now. Back then I was just a novice pilot. I know a whole lot more about it now, and probably one of the only people in the world now that do. I do get quite a number of inquiries at flying high altitude from other club members around the world, which I find quite interesting. And these people have been flying a lot longer than me. So on that particular launch, I've actually held my breath. Not intentionally, but I ran, and it wasn't until I found the thing was flying. I didn't know whether it was flying. It actually took off and then came back down again, and then I did another couple of steps, and that was all it was needed. Then I was over the 1800 metre drop, so the thing had to fly then. And I realised when I'm over that, and all of a sudden there is no ground beneath me, that I wasn't breathing. But there was no oxygen to breathe anyway. And I was gasping and gasping and gasping for air. Not only that, the funny thing, I can talk about it now, was the harness I was using is a very, very light harness. It only weighs 200 grams. And I'm not that big down there, but I did manage to get myself caught up in the harness. It was very uncomfortable sitting on the parts of men that you shouldn't be sitting on. And I had to sort myself out then. And maybe that helped as well, because I'm in pain from that. I can't breathe. It was about 5 minutes I managed to get the air, the enough oxygen through my body that I was then quite comfortable. And at 5 minutes after that, I realised, oh, I was supposed to be saying something for sponsors while I'm flying. And I thought, I better start thinking. I couldn't think of anything to say. So I said something idiotic, and every time I hear it, now that's why I put that nice sounding music on there, and you don't hear me talking. But all of a sudden I realised, this glider's flying. Look where I am. Look at what I've just achieved. And I was pretty proud of this. I'm pretty chuffed that I'd even have the guts to do this. And all of a sudden, it was just the flight of your life. It was just amazing. But they were the problems that you don't think about prior to going. How am I going to get this glider in still air? And I didn't expect to have still air. I expected to have strong winds coming straight up the mountain, because that's where the wind's going to come from. It's not going to come from over the back of the mountain and come down this way. It's going to come straight up. It just sucks the air up through these valleys. You get this valley lift. There was one time on that flight that I felt I was going up, and I did not want to go up. I'm acclimatised to 7,200 metres. I want to get down as fast as I can, because it was a little bit daunting. Not knowing whether the thing was going to fly, not knowing what Japanese rifle was aimed at me. I know, let's get down quick. So I tried to stay out of the open air, try to stay close to the mountains themselves, but not close enough that I was getting lift off the mountains and going back up. So I had it down. The flight, it took about 15 minutes and about 9 kilometres. I landed 9 kilometres on horizontal distance from where I launched, which is right back at base camp.
So will you need breathing apparatus to come off the top of that?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And is there a takeoff script?
This time next year, I'll let you know. I have spoken to a couple of people who have been on the summit of Everest. They said there's nothing on the summit that's going to help you. Most likely it'll be the South Col, which is the col between a mountain next door called Lhotse and Everest itself. There's an area through there.
But you would expect strong winds coming up there?
The expectation would be strong winds. The expectation of success is very low because of the strong winds. But with my ability to turn things around in my favour through people looking after me, I reckon I've got a better chance than most, if it was to be. Chances are it's not going to happen. Chances are I'll climb to the summit, chances are I'll attempt to climb to the summit. Climbing the summit of Everest is no mean feat. Most people don't make it, so that's got to be achieved first. And that's going to be pretty huge. And that will be more focused on that than what I will be on the flying. The flying, from what I know now, will be subject to conditions being right. Flying is the easy part. It's the easy way down. It's sort of like cheating. It's cheating. Anyone else has to walk down, and I can just jump on a glider and fly down. It is cheating. However, that's what's going to get people's attention, by being able to achieve that.
And
What's the time frame? You walked up and you're absolutely exhausted. Before you take off, you've got to recover from that exhaustion. What's the time frame?
Yeah, you don't recover at those altitudes. You're not going to recover from exhaustion, no matter if you sit down and wait for an hour, you're still declining because of the altitude. There's no oxygen up there. You're still declining. You can't afford just to sit there and suck on a bottle of oxygen. You're going to run out. You do not want to run out of oxygen. So the time, traditionally the winds are lower during the morning. Traditionally climbing Everest, leaving high camp, leaving camp 4, you need to be on the summit by 2 p.m. If you're not going to be on the summit by 2 p.m, the textbook says you turn around and go home. You're up in those high altitudes too long, your body's slowly dying, generally don't come down without some sort of injury. Generally don't come down without frostbite. So, because I've got to throw flying into this, I've got to make sure I do go up to Roaring Rocks every morning and get very, very fit, and try and get up there as early as I can after daybreak, which may mean leaving at 8 p.m. rather than midnight to do the summit. The reason they leave at midnight to do the summit is it can get hot up there as well, but so the ice is hard. Generally the winds are lower during the night. The winds heat up on the ground during the day when you have differences in air pressures. So the best opportunity for flying is probably around 8 o'clock in the morning or earlier, and so that would be the intention to get up there then. So that sort of answer the question, time frame wise. So it's really climbing overnight, from Camp 4, climbing overnight, and then launching as early as you can the next morning.
What's the effect of coming from high altitude down quickly? Did you get something like the bends or?
Remember back when the Mexico Olympics were on, that they all went over there to train at high altitude? The reason they do that is exactly what I said previously, is that you build your red blood cells up, you get all this extra oxygen in your system, you go back down to low altitude, and you feel like Hercules. It's amazing. The time to go and run a marathon is after you come back from Everest Base Camp. Because, well, but the effect of coming off the mountain is really great. Is really great because it does your body so much good when you performance-wise. But while you're up there, as I say, you are anything above 8,000 metres, what they call the death zone, 7,500 metres, they call it the death zone. You cannot live those altitudes. The highest altitude humans can live at is 5,000 metres. No one lives higher than 5,000 metres because you just can't survive at those altitudes. So that's why it's race up and get back.
Is it feasible for you to have an oxygen bottle in your backpack and mask on when you're taking off?
Yep. The oxygen weighs about 3 kilos.
How long does that last?
About 6 hours. Yeah, on low. You can adjust the amount of
What about intake? Protein, bananas? You must eat from...
Yeah, Nepalese food's not the best.
Sorry?
Nepalese food's not the best, and I've never known a banana to grow other than across harbour. but look, you can get good food, a lot better food up there now than what you used to.
When you're doing this, you're climbing Everest, and then before you,
Beef jerky.
all those hours.
Beef jerky is the thing to take. Protein in your meals up there is very, very low, so beef jerky. But also because of helicopters now, and helicopters flying at the base camp, dozens of them a day, bringing food up. You'll never see a helicopter going up there empty. It'll always have a tourist on board and a few boxes of fruit or a few boxes of food or whatever the various expeditions order. There's boxes of them all ready to go down at Lukla, which is the nearest airport to base camp. So the food has got a lot better, but you're still combating dal bhat, which is a rice and lentil-based food. Lots of potatoes, lots of pasta, soggy pizza with occasionally you might be able to get chicken on it, or you might get a tuna on it, things like that, but the food is not great. Right, the food is pretty bland. And even drinking water at those altitudes, you've got to force yourself to drink water. The best way to do that is have Coke. I will not have Coca-Cola at home, but over there, I'll always have a bottle of Coke in my backpack. It's also the best thing to have in your first aid kit, because exhaustion is one of those things you're battling all the time. It's nothing like Coke and chocolate to pick you up.
I just looked at my watch and realised how much time has flown by, and I guess that tells me how interesting it's been to listen to Ken. I have heard a lot of that story before, but it's just fascinating to hear it all over again and to hear all the extra bits. Ken, thanks very much for being our speaker this month. Apologies to those who thought they were coming to hear somebody else who your passion. We're thinking that we'll make a donation to the End Polio campaign on behalf of Coffee and Friends.
Thank
So
you.
let's thank Ken for